I never imagined the craziest 1v1 fights would change my view on medieval history forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stood there, heart racing, in a tiny medieval-themed arena. The air was thick with tension. It smelled like sweat and something metallic, like the remnants of a battlefield. The crowd roared, a sea of faces eager, captivated. My friends cheered, their voices blending into a cacophony of excitement. Among them, Jenna, my oldest friend, screamed my name. Her eyes shone with wild energy, urging me on as I stepped onto the cracked earth. The weight of the moment was like a stone in my chest. I couldn't shake the history lurking beneath my feet. This wasn't just a game. These were the echoes of past warriors, the ghosts of knights who fought for honor, for love, for revenge. I could almost hear them whisper, what would they think of our battles today? What would they fight for? For weeks, I had been deep in research, absorbed in dusty books and ancient scripts. Did knights really duel for Lady S favors? The answer was yes, but the truth was much darker. They fought over lands, riches, lives. Each swing of a sword carved stories into time, pain, betrayal, victories that felt more than just personal. They had real weight. I learned about the brutal end of reputations with a single thrust, how one moment could change everything. In my chest, I felt the past tremble as I took on my opponent, a fierce fighter with eyes like ice. The challenge danced between us. I couldn't help but feel both exhilaration and fear. Our blades clashed, sending shocking vibrations up my arms. It was more intense than I anticipated. The thrill of the fight coursed through my veins, every moment felt heavy, every breath was charged as I recalled stories of knights who had faced worse. I could see their faces, the glories and the tragedies, flashing before my eyes. What if I let them down? What if I lost? Then it happened. The unthinkable. A miscalculation, a sudden slip, and there it was, my sword fell from my grasp, clattering painfully to the ground. My heart fell with it. The world around me zoomed in and froze, the buzz of the crowd turned into a distant roar. In that paralyzing silence, Jenna's face morphed from ecstatic cheer to sheer horror. There was a gasp from the crowd, whispers of disbelief. My chest tightened. Was this it? A single moment could unravel everything I fought for, everything I believed about honor and bravery. Would I rise again, or would I crumble under the weight of that historic legacy? My hands trembled, my heart beat wildly. Had I just taken my last breath in this fight, or could I transform the moment into something greater? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The crowd erupted, a turbulent tide of voices blending into one overwhelming sound. Get up. Come on. Their shouts rang out, but all I could hear was the echo of my heartbeat thrumming painfully loud in my ears. My mind raced back to the countless nights spent poring over dusty tomes, imagining the glory of the battlefield, the honor of the fight. How had I allowed myself to be reduced to this? Jenna's face, once shimmering with encouragement, was painted with concern. Her unwavering support felt like a razor-sharp reminder of everything I was risking. I sensed the gravity of my failure hang in the air like a dark cloud, but as I knelt there, feeling the rough earth underneath me, I also felt something shift within. In that crushing moment of vulnerability, a stranger stepped forward. He was an older man, his face etched with wrinkles that bore witness to many years of battles fought not in arenas, but in life itself. He regarded me with a deep, knowing gaze. Remember, it's not the fall that defines you, but how you rise from it. There was a quiet strength in his voice, a reminder of the resilience I desperately needed to summon. With a deep breath, I grasped the blade's hilt. The fight wasn't over, not yet. Slowly, I stood, heart pounding, my gaze meeting my opponent's icy stare. I felt like 1,000 voices from the past surrounded me, lifting me, urging me to continue, to fight for something beyond just victory. Seconds stretched while the crowd held its collective breath. I could almost feel the weight of history in the air, resonating with my heartbeat. I raised my sword again, taking a firm stance, and the cheers ignited once more. With adrenaline surging, I threw myself back into the fray. Each parry and thrust felt like a resurrection, the familiar flicker of hope ignited deep within me, intertwined with memories of those warriors who had fought harder, against far greater odds. The duel resumed, a dance of steel and spirit. Each clash was a reaffirmation of my will, a battle not just with my opponent, but with the creeping shadows of self-doubt that had threatened to overcome me. For every strike I delivered, I felt lighter, as if the burden of my supposed failure was transforming into something stronger and unwavering resolve, and then it happened again. A faint flicker caught my eye from the edge of the arena. Among the crowd, a girl waved a small banner, something simple but meaningful: "Fight for yourself." In that moment, the world around me simplified. I wasn't just fighting for the applause of the spectators or the ghostly knights of the past. I was fighting for validation, for the belief I had in myself. Energized by that simple message, I modified my approach. No longer was I an uncertain warrior. I was a storyteller, crafting my own epic in real time. The energy shifted, I felt stronger, more purposeful. Every strike became a testament to my spirit. The icy gaze of my opponent began to falter, ever so slightly. Still, as the final minutes of the match ticked by and the energy of the crowd surged, I felt a flicker of unease creeping back. What would happen if I won? The question twisted in my gut. Did I, somehow, feel undeserving of the honor? Behind the exhilaration lay uncertainty, gnawing at my resolve. The final clash reverberated between us, the sparks brightening the dimming afternoon light. As his blade skimmed past mine, the world shifted, and I saw, clear as day, a doorway filled with uncertainty just past this fight. Would I seize this chance, or would the weight of expectation shackle me once more? As the final strike landed, and I pushed through the last vestiges of doubt, a loud cheer rose up, but it felt hollow. The world slowed, the victorious cry turning into a distant echo. I stood in the center of the arena, victorious perhaps, yet eager and fearful of the revelations that awaited beyond this moment. Just then, a figure broke into the arena through the swirling crowd, an unexpected visitor, someone I never thought I'd see again. My breath caught in my throat. There he was, my estranged brother, Daniel, eyes filled with a mixture of pride and confusion. It was a moment that held more questions than answers, and as he stepped forward, an unexpected realization dawned upon me. The legacy I carried wasn't just mine, it belonged to him, too. The arena felt smaller as I faced him, excitement mingling with apprehension. What had he witnessed? Would he understand my battles? And more importantly, would we reconcile in this new reality, a reality where both our histories intertwined, fraught with emotion and unfinished stories? The cheers of the crowd washed over me like crashing waves, but my heart felt heavy with an unsettling mixture of emotions. Each thunderous clap was a reminder that I stood on the precipice of something monumental. Daniel's presence shattered the fabric of the moment. It was no longer just about the fight or the fleeting glory of victory. I was thrust back into a past I thought I'd sealed away, the ghosts of our shared childhood echoing in my mind like distant battle cries. Daniel, I breathed, as if the name alone could bridge the chasm that had grown between us over the years. His eyes held a complex tapestry of feelings: pride, certainly, but also confusion and a hint of wariness. Memories of our last fight lingered in the air like a curse, heated arguments, broken words, and a silence that lasted far too long. As the tumult of the crowd began to fade like a receding tide, I stepped closer, the soil crunching beneath my feet. Each step felt weighed down by unspoken apologies and shared dreams that had fractured long ago. "What are you doing here?" The question fell from my lips, edged with vulnerability. He regarded me for a long moment, and his expression shifted. "I came because I wanted to see you, to understand who you've become," he admitted, his voice steady but laced with underlying tension. "It's been too long, hasn't it?" I wanted to scream that it was all his fault for walking away first, for not fighting harder to keep our bond intact. But that would lead us only to deeper hurt. Instead, I nodded, echoes of our childhood words dancing between us, colors of love and warmth now tarnished by distance and misunderstanding. Do you even remember why we promised to fight for each other? The memory felt tender, hauntingly familiar, a motivating bond of loyalty we forged as children amidst the chaos of our lives. Do you remember how we imagined ourselves as knights, standing shoulder to shoulder against whatever challenges dared to approach? A shadow flickered across his features, and in that instant, I saw the boy I used to know beneath the layers of guardedness. Things changed, he replied quietly, a hint of regret coloring his words. You chose this path, the arena. I thought you'd forgotten, or that I meant nothing to you. His admission clawed at my heart. I wanted to reach out and pull him close, to share the burden of our past instead of letting it loom between us like a sword suspended in the air. I fought to prove myself, Daniel. I didn't forget any of it. But I thought I had to do this for me. The weight of my own failures loomed like a gathering storm, yet a sliver of hope pierced through. Maybe there's a way we both could fight for ourselves, together. He fell silent, and for a breathless moment, the gap between us widened. I could see the spark of something alive in his eyes. Curiosity? Hope? Perhaps the pang of wanting to reconnect with the brother he once knew. But before I could grasp the moment, an unfamiliar tension broke through the air, the sounds of a clamor from the crowd shifted, whispers weaving through the throngs. I turned, instinctively seeking the source of the disruption. It was then I noticed a figure, a dark silhouette standing just beyond the rim of the arena, a familiar presence obscured by the shadows. My heart sunk as recognition washed over me. It was an old acquaintance of ours, a rival from my past, a person whose name stirred a tempest of unresolved conflict and unwanted rivalry. Mara, she raised a hand, fist clenched, her expression unreadable but charged with purpose. You don't belong here, her voice cut through the noise, sharp as the edge of a blade. You think you can just waltz back into his life and pretend you matter? You left. You always leave. My heart raced as Daniel's expression shifted from curiosity to confusion and hurt. What does she mean, Mara? He asked, glancing between us as if the weight of the question could peel away the layers of time and pain. In that moment, the air grew thick with a haunting anticipation. I searched for an answer that wouldn't fracture the fragile bridge we were trying to rebuild. Daniel, wait, you don't understand. But the impossible task loomed above me, and the emotional turmoil swallowed the words before they could escape. Mara stepped forward, her eyes locked onto mine. I'm here to finish what was started. They are waiting for you, both of you. The implication hung heavy in the air, the undercurrents of her words threatening to unravel the very threads of hope we had begun to weave together, and as darkness began to crowd into the edges of our tentative reunion, the dawning realization settled in like a lead weight. I had thought my battle was only against my own doubt, but now, with Daniel standing beside me, it became a fight beyond ourselves, a struggle against shadows we had long tried to outrun. How much longer could we avoid the truth of our shared history? In that instant, I felt time suspend itself, the weight of uncertainty and unfinished stories pressing heavily on my chest. The stakes had just risen, and I had just become painfully aware of the opening act for a much larger confrontation waiting just outside the boundaries of the arena. The fight was far from over. The crowd continued to surge around us, an overwhelming wave of noise and discontent that felt like a spectre haunting the fragile moment I had shared with Daniel. Mara's presence loomed like a storm cloud, twisting the emotions that had begun to unfurl between us into something darker. I could see it in the way Daniel's brows furrowed, the crack of disappointment across his face rippling like a pebble dropped in a still pond, causing the waters of our past to churn. Mara, please, I began, desperation clawing at my throat, but the weight of years gone by made it difficult to forge my words into something meaningful. You don't get to use his pain as a shield, she hissed back, venomous and swift. You walked away, leaving him bleeding in the dirt. Yet here you are, strutting into his life as if nothing happened, as if you hadn't left him to fight his own battles all alone. Each word was a knife to my heart. The truth cut deeply, leaving a raw ache in its wake. I had fought hard to conceal that guilt, to distract myself with the thrill of combat and the cheers of the audience, but Mara had laid it bare, ripping through the illusion I tried to maintain. Daniel turned away from her, a shiver of indignation igniting in him. Enough. This isn't about you, he snapped, his voice barely masking the tremors of his anger. I came here to see her, to understand what happened, to see if there was a chance to find some common ground between us. There it was, a flicker of that youthful promise, the glint of hope I had almost dared to imagine. But Mara stepped even closer, encroaching on the moment, her tone shifting yet again, softer now, as though she had suddenly become a somber wellspring of truth. You really think it's that easy? She seethed. That you can just erase the scars left in the wake of your decisions? You think he can just embrace you without question? Daniel flinched as though struck. I had never seen his defenses drop so sharply, and the shards of vulnerability I glimpsed in that moment twisted my heart. They were ghosts of our shared history, beliefs we once held dear, crumbling under the weight of time. The more I looked at him, the more I felt the desperate urge to mend the break, yet every attempt was a risk of digging the knife in even deeper. I started, but Mara interrupted me, her voice suddenly much more even. You wanted to be at the top of the world, didn't you? What happens when you find that world is made of sand, teetering on the edge of a cliff? My instinct was to retort, to claw back at her words, to fight against this sudden rush of doubt seeping into my thoughts, but I stopped. A truth settled within me, heavy and undeniable. Securing victory in the arena was far less daunting than confronting the messy complexities of my own loneliness. Daniel turned to me again, eyes shadowed with urgency. Can we not talk about this here? His voice softened. How many times do I need to reassure you that you still matter to me? I want to try and understand what happened, but not here, not like this. I swallowed tightly under the gaze of his earnest plea. I want that too, Daniel. I want to fight for us. But my heart broke as I hesitated, feeling the weight of what was left unspoken. But I'm terrified of what it means to truly begin again. Can we really face these shadows together? Mara's expression shifted, her fierce facade softened for a split second, perhaps finding herself in similar scars, yet she quickly reinstated her bravado. You can't run away from this, not with me around. The moment you stepped back into this world, you reignited old flames. The past isn't a fairy tale, it's a battlefield. You both are still marked by the scars of battle. The crowd grew louder, but the world outside of our moment began to fade away. I felt a new resolve stirring within me, compelled by Daniel's unwavering gaze, and instinctively reached for his hand. To my relief, he grasped it tightly, linking 4 years of separation into one singular moment of connection. But over the swell of voices came yet another sound, more sinister, a growling murmur sweeping through the throngs, one that felt tainted with escalating dread. Daniel and I exchanged nervous glances. What is that? He asked, voice trembling. Mara, what is happening? I could barely contain my fear, but I would not let the frailty of the moment break us. She turned, face pale, and I could see the growing shadows beyond the crowd. You should not have come back. They are coming. Her words sent a chill down my spine, the clarity of their intent settling ominously in the air. My heart pounded as the ground beneath me felt less like solid earth and more like the shifting sands she had described just moments earlier. It was clear, our confrontation against the past had ignited a force neither of us were prepared to face. Daniel, I whispered sharply, urgency building as I glanced back at the approaching figures. We have to move. Now. You're not safe, he replied, squeezing my hand. And neither am I. As the crowd parted, revealing the growing brawl on the fringes, my heart raced, not purely from fear, but from the dawning hope that we would indeed fight together. But as Mara retreated into the shadows, I couldn't shake the sense that our battle was far from over, only now it extended beyond our heart-wrenching reunion. Uncharted and fraught with danger, the path ahead felt disorientingly precarious, as if I were standing on the edge of destiny itself. The chaos of the crowd erupted into sheer pandemonium as visceral cries and the sharp clang of metal rang through the air. My heart surged with adrenaline as I glanced at Daniel, the pulse of possibility swelling between us like an unyielding tide. But the reality of our situation bore down upon my shoulders, pressing against the fragile hope we had briefly clutched. Run, he urged, his voice straining against the tide of noise. I took a step back, torn between the instinct to escape and the strange yearning for solidarity. Could we truly face whatever threat loomed together? As we tried to weave through the crowd, I could feel the weight of Mara's gaze burning into my back, a silent reminder of our shared history, of the scars left in the wake of my choices. Yet even as I felt her presence haunt me, the reality of what lay ahead was far more immediate and pressing. People surged to the sides as figures dressed in dark armor surged toward us, cloaked in menace. Their shouts reverberated through the air, distorted with anger. I saw familiar faces, former competitors and allies caught in their frenzy, and my heart sank. This was more than a mere brawl, it was a reckoning. "Stay close," Daniel cried, tugging me toward the nearest alley. The skirmish grew louder, each echoing clash threatening to drown out any flicker of hope. As we turned the corner, I found myself struggling to keep pace with him, but the rhythm of our fear began to synchronize. "How did they find us?" I gasped, desperation clawing at my throat. "I don't know," he shouted back, his eyes glancing over his shoulder. "But we can't wait to find out. We have to keep moving." Breathless, we navigated the narrow passage, every corner turned only serving to amplify the tumult raging in the streets behind us. But in the midst of our frantic escape, a flicker of clarity cut through the chaos, a brief window into the past. Memories unfurled before me, shared laughter over cups of ale, whispered promises beneath starlit skies. "Daniel, wait." I stopped abruptly, despite the urgency. The scent of familiarity rekindled something within me, a longing to reclaim not just what was lost, but also the person I once was. "We can't keep running without understanding why this is happening." He hesitated, uncertainty flickering in his expression. "You think we'll find clarity in the midst of chaos? Look around. It's a battlefield. Then help me create a safe space within this chaos. We have faced demons before, let us face them anew." The wildness in his eyes faded, the flicker of trust igniting anew. "All right," he relented, nodding slowly. "Let us find somewhere to regroup, to think." We ducked into the mouth of a shadowed archway, sanctuary amidst the storm. The wall pressed against my back, the faint sounds of the calamity muted, and I could breathe again, even as my heart raced. Daniel's presence enveloped me, fragile yet fierce, a balm against the memories clawing at my mind. "What do you think will happen next?" he murmured, casting a sidelong glance down the alley, as if expecting the shadows to yield answers. "Maybe they want me back in the arena. Or perhaps it isn't about me at all," I replied, clutching his hand again, desperate for strength. "Maybe they want to expose everything, our truths, our failures. And they are willing to destroy everything we've fought to rebuild." "You're not alone," he said softly. "Whatever this is, we'll face it together," he reassured. "But I need to know you're ready for that. Are you?" A familiar weight settled on my chest, one I believed I had left behind in the fray of competition. "I don't know if I can ever be ready, but I want to try, for us." As we stood together, the gravity of our situation pressed in on us, the feeling of our connection wavering like a fragile thread. Yet just as the flickers of hope bloomed, I heard footsteps approaching our hidden sanctuary. My heart leaped, darkness crept closer, and once more, the chaotic melody of battle reframed all that we had dared to hope. The heavy footfalls stopped outside the alley, and the figure that emerged, barely illuminated in the dim light, sent chills through me. It was Mara. Her expression was unreadable, the fire I had once known was snuffed out by something deeper, something darker. "You shouldn't have come here," she said plainly, the weight of her words heavy in the air. "Everything has changed." "Change has always been inevitable," Daniel replied, stepping protectively in front of me. "We can't keep reliving the past, Mara." Her eyes flickered with a haunting truth, filled with pain I had only just begun to comprehend. "You were never meant to face it alone," she said, each word seemingly tattered with regret. "But it's coming for you now, both of you." The air turned electric, a fragile pause encasing our fragile hope. I stepped back, grasping Daniel's hand tighter. The unspoken acknowledgement of the shadows of our past loomed large, an unyielding truth that threatened to unravel everything we had fought to recreate. "Who?" I breathed, the question bursting forth, desperate for a clarity that remained agonizingly out of reach. Mara's eyes narrowed. Someone far more dangerous than any spectator in the arena. They know the stakes, and they won't stop until they've reclaimed what was lost. Shock rippled through me as her gaze fixed on Daniel. It felt like a revelation uncoiling in the air, a chilling acceptance of our fractured fates, and as she turned to leave, I knew the game had changed forever. "Wait," I called after her, panic rising. "What do you mean?" But the shadows had already swallowed her whole, leaving me facing Daniel and the question that hung in the air between us: what kind of battle were we really fighting? And were we truly prepared for the reckoning at hand? The sound of Mara's footsteps faded into the distance, leaving us in a silence that felt heavy with unspoken truths. I turned to Daniel, the uncertainty twisting my insides. The flicker of hope we had ignited seemed to sputter in the aftermath of her ominous words. Who could possibly want to reclaim what was lost? I murmured, my voice trembling as the enormity of Mara's claim settled over us like a pall. What does that even mean? Daniel's brow furrowed, his jaw tight with barely contained worry. I don't know, but it's clear someone has been orchestrating this. His eyes drifted past mine, focused on the alleyway's end where shadows mingled with the dim light. We need to figure out what she was talking about before they take everything from us again. A reckoning, I echoed, the word rolling off my tongue like a bitter pill. Sounds like they've been waiting. The tension in Daniel's shoulders spoke volumes. We had always been adept at weaving through challenges, finding strength in our unity, yet the fear creeping in now was insidious, a whisper of betrayal threading through our shared struggles. I wanted to shake off the doubts, but they clung to me like a shroud. Maybe we should, I hesitated, calculating each word. Maybe we should reach out to some of our old allies. If there is something happening in the shadows, we can't confront it alone. He opened his mouth, then shut it again, his gaze locking onto mine with fierce intensity. Allies? You mean the same people who betrayed us before? The ones who thrived in the chaos and turned against us when it suited them? Yes, but not all of them. I can't believe I was arguing this. The destruction of trust we lived through felt palpable, yet so did the need for support. Some of them are still with us. We've just lost our way. We can't let fear stop us from seeking help. Daniel pinched the bridge of his nose, clearly torn. You think any of them will listen? They thought we were weak. We still have scars from that play. I took a step closer, desperate to bolster his resolve. But we've changed. We found each other, Daniel. We know now what betrayal feels like. We're equipped to navigate the mess they created. All right, he relented slowly, though his eyes darted behind him with unease. But it will take time. We'll need to be careful where we tread. The shadows around us draped longer, the noise beyond the alley trailing off, an eerie reverberation of the chaos still thriving elsewhere. Just as Daniel pulled out a small, weathered map of the old city, an artifact from time we thought forgotten, a thought struck me. What if those who wished to undo us weren't merely lurking? What if they were already among us, ever more poised to strike? Daniel, the weight of urgency slipped from my lips. What if we're already being watched? What if before I could finish, a sudden crack echoed from the alley's entrance? We turned, our bodies instinctively tightening as a figure emerged into the faint light. Thought you could run from me? It was Klaus, his trademark smirk twisting with a mockery that only curled my stomach tighter. You've made quite the mess for yourselves, haven't you? Daniel stepped protectively in front of me again, fists clenched at his sides. What do you want, Klaus? A chance, my dear friends, he said, his voice silky smooth as if the chaos outside were merely a distant reverie. The world has turned, and the tides are shifting. I think you both have what it takes to score yourselves a better seat at this table, not as victims, but as the key players. My heart raced. Why would you even care? Because, he replied slowly, turning his gaze on me with unsettling intensity, the powers that be don't just want to reclaim what was lost. They want to eliminate anyone who might stand in their way. And it seems, he gestured between Daniel and me, that you two could be much more than pawns if you play your cards right. What is your game, Klaus? Daniel demanded, eyes narrowing. There's a battle brewing, one far bigger than the grit you've faced thus far. If you can sharpen your strengths, align. With those who truly hold the power ties, you might just survive this. My heart raced at the implications swirling within his words, tantalizing yet terrifying. And what do you get out of this? Klaus chuckled softly. Another chance at something memorable, a wager if you will. But the stakes are much higher this time, my friends. If you choose to fight, you'll need to reclaim not just your lives, but the very essence of your identities. I looked at Daniel, who met my gaze with a blend of caution and determination. A choice loomed before us, a path toward uncertainty, yet the door hinged on a sliver of hope if we could infiltrate the depths of today's darkness. But before I could formulate my response, a distant rumble echoed through the streets above us, sending a tremor of dread down my spine. Perhaps the storm surrounding us was not merely chaos, but a prelude to a battle far beyond what we had ever encountered. "I'll make you a deal," Klaus offered, delight dancing in his eyes. "Join me, and I promise you both will hold the cards next time. But make your choice quickly, the storm is brewing, and I doubt you'll have much more time before it breaks." As he faded back into the shadows, the weight of the decision settled heavy on my chest. Daniel's eyes were filled with uncertainty, and the gravity of our shared past loomed large between us. What game were we truly stepping into, and were we prepared to face whatever darkness awaited just beyond the veil? The boundaries of trust were fracturing again, and with each breath, I felt myself teetering closer to the edge of a reckoning that might shatter everything I thought I knew. With Klaus's words echoing in my ears, a torrent of conflicting emotions surged within me: fear, dread, and an unexpected thrill. My heart raced as the shadows seemed to deepen, shrouding our surroundings in an almost suffocating gloom. Glancing at Daniel, I could see the internal battle waging behind his furrowed brow, a mix of curiosity and trepidation mirrored in his eyes. "Do you really think we can trust him?" he finally asked, the question hanging between us like an electric charge. He's always had his own agenda. But what if he's right? The words slipped out before I could catch them. What if we really are on the brink of something larger than ourselves? As much as I hated the idea of Klaus being our potential ally, the fear of the unknown gnawed at me like a persistent itch. "What is the alternative?" Daniel challenged, his frustration palpable. "Sitting back and letting whatever threatens us take over? I can't bring myself to do that again." His voice softened, and he stepped closer, the heat between us palpable. "But playing his game, it could lead us into even darker waters, Anna." The memories of the betrayal, of the friends who became foes, played like a broken record in my mind. I didn't want to tread that path again. Yet, the remnants of hope curled around the edges of my anxiety. Together, we faced worse. What if we find wayward allies who can help guide us instead of betray us? Daniel pushed a hand through his hair, exhaling heavily. "Trust is a fragile thing, Anna. It's what led to our downfall last time." Just as he spoke, an unexpected sound broke the tension. A soft voice called out from the dark, fragile yet steady. "You don't have to tread this path alone." We turned to see an elderly woman emerging from the shadows, her eyes glinting like emeralds. She wore a ragged cloak, fraying at the seams, yet there was a certain warmth emanating from her presence. "I've watched from afar," she continued, a tremor of urgency threading her words, "and I know what's being plotted against you." "Who are you?" Daniel asked, stepping in front of me instinctively. "Simply a witness to the chaos," she replied, a small smile breaking the austere lines of her face. "Names do not matter when you are fighting for souls. But I can guide you towards those still loyal, those who remember what you once stood for." "Why would you help us?" I asked, skepticism edging into my voice. "Because good cannot flourish without light," she said, her voice unwavering. "And what you're facing is not purely darkness. It's a coalition of discontent, fueled by power and vengeance. You have a choice to either be pawns or to reclaim your strength." Without waiting for our response, she slowly unfurled a small, tattered map she had clutched tightly in her hands, the ink smudged and faded. "These markings show where your allies lie dormant, waiting for the right spark. Seek them out. Trust in those who have suffered alongside you. It is the only way you'll be strong enough to face the storm." Daniel glanced at me, then back to the woman. "And what do you ask in return?" Only a promise that the past, with its scars, will not derail your journey. The heroes you need will not arrive without hope and faith. She paused, her eyes softening. But be wary, trust cannot be taken for granted. The weight of her warning hung heavy in the air, a thread binding us to the unfolding chaos. My mind raced, torn between the comfort of familiar fears and the glint of hope offered by this stranger. As she turned to leave, her gaze lingered on me for a moment longer. Remember, dear one, strength will never be solely in numbers, it will be in conviction and trust. Let the tides turn in your favor. When she vanished into the shadows, I turned to Daniel, a new urgency igniting within me. What if we try? What if we reach out to those she mentioned? Do we have a choice? Daniel pondered, his gaze distant yet resolute. Yet the moment of clarity was shattered. A cacophony rang out, a distant explosion shook the ground beneath us, a violent reminder of the brewing storm. Instinctively, we staggered back, looking toward the source of the sound, panic rippling between us. Anna, Daniel hissed, gripping my arm. We need to go. Now. We moved, urgency fueling our steps, yet that gnawing feeling of dread clawed at my insides. The world outside the alley was devolving into madness, our path forward growing perilously unclear. But with each stride we took, my heart thundered against the uncertainty plotting in the shadows, the stakes higher than I ever imagined. The signs were everywhere, painted in stark relief across our reality: the past, the allies lost, the choices yet to be made. Then, just as we turned the corner, a chilling sight awaited us. A figure stood at the end of the street, silhouetted against the fire raging in the distance, watching us with an unsettling intensity. My breath caught in my throat as recognition resonated within me. Daniel, I think they've already found us. The flames flickered like the remnants of memory, painting the world in hues of orange and ash. My heart pounded violently in my chest, each beat whispering the name of the figure standing ominously against the burning backdrop. There, illuminated in the chaotic light, was someone I thought I had lost forever, a figure from the shadows of my past, draped in cloaks of regret and uncertainty. Is that? Daniel's voice faltered, his grip on my arm tightening as we stood frozen, caught in a moment where time itself seemed to hold its breath. Evelyn, I breathed, feeling the warmth of hope clashing violently with the chill of remembrance. She was my once closest friend who had vanished into thin air when everything fell apart. The fractures of betrayal had led me to believe she was gone for good, swallowed by the shadows of our fragmented lives. Daniel's expression shifted from fear to a protective resolve. Stay behind me. But the touch of the familiar drew me forward. My legs moved without command as I called out, Evelyn. Is it really you? She turned slowly, the fire casting long, dancing shadows across her face. When her eyes locked with mine, I was met by a whirlwind of emotions, a convoluted mixture of longing and hurt mirrored in her vibrant gaze. Anna, she whispered, her voice a melody tinged with sadness. As I stepped closer, I could see the toll the years had taken on her. The hope I had once clung to did battle with the reality of her lost years and the scars they had etched on her soul. What happened to you? I asked, suddenly afraid to hear the answer. It was never truly over for me, Anna, she said, her voice catching as she took a tentative step forward, reaching for my hand as if testing the waters of our relationship. I've been searching for you, for the others. I was caught amidst the factions that wanted to tear us apart. We thought you were gone. I felt the weight of so many missed conversations, unspoken apologies, an unresolved heartache surge to the forefront. The anger I thought I had buried bubbled back to the surface. You left us when we needed you the most. I had no choice. She cried, tears glimmering in her eyes. I was hunted. Hunted by those who thought I would lead them to you. I kept your name in the shadows so they wouldn't know you still existed, so I could find a way back. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over me, hurt intermingled with the flickering hope of rekindled friendship. But why now? Why show yourself when everything is falling apart? Before she could respond, the distant tremor of chaos reverberated closer, a reminder that we were not alone in our struggles. Shadows moved in the periphery, figures stepping into the light, a coalition of faces I recognized, some allies, some adversaries. Evelyn, we don't have much time, Daniel interjected, urgency seeping back into his voice. If they find us here. She nodded as the shadows encroached, then turned to embrace me, her grip gripping as though she feared I would vanish again. I need you to listen carefully. There are forces at play led by Klaus, manipulating both sides. If you think you can trust him, you might be playing right into his hands. Why would he want to use us? I felt my thoughts spiral, conflicted once again. Klaus had been a puppet master in the chaos before and now, potentially, he sought us out for some new purpose. He sees you as symbols, Evelyn answered, her voice low as she scanned the street. We're all pawns in a game that's far bigger than us. We have to fight against his control. A cacophony of shouts echoed down the street, drawing nearer, underscoring her words with urgency. Behind us, the figures loomed ever closer, faces shadowed yet familiar. They were allies and enemies all blended together in one tightly knit knot of tension. Daniel, how do we know who we can trust? I asked, panic flaring once more. It felt as though the walls were closing in, distrust hovering like a mist. Look to the heart, Evelyn said, conviction lacing her tone. Trust is a hard-earned currency, but it's the only way forward. Not all who come cloaked in dark intentions deliver betrayal. Some carry kindness beneath the surface. Before I could respond, I felt the unmistakable warmth of a hand clasping mine. It was Daniel. His eyes held mine, fear giving way to a flicker of determination. Together, we will find out who we can trust. In that moment, a surge of hope mingled with the uncertainty that brewed. But just as I began to grasp at the fraying threads of this newfound alliance, a sound, sharp and metallic, sliced through the air, a knife being drawn, a dagger poised. Drop your weapons. A voice thundered, rough and merciless, and from the shadows emerged a looming figure draped in a cloak darker than night, a shimmer of metal reflecting the firelight. Make your choice, he sneered, pointing toward Evelyn and Daniel. This ends now. With the threat hovering over us and the shadows closing in on every side, the path forward splintered into chaos. Trust, courage, an old wound swirled in my mind, all teetering on the precipice of disaster. Anna. Daniel urged as the figure advanced. We have to act now. And as the storm of violence grew closer, I knew that the choices we made in this moment would shift the very fabric of our lives forever. Would we emerge from the chaos unscathed, or would we be consumed by the flames of our past? The air thickened with tension, each heartbeat echoing my indecision. The cloaked figure, his shadow stretching toward us, seemed to feed off the chaos that enveloped the alley. The members of the previous factions, the allies and enemies I once knew, stood at the outskirts, ready to join the fray, their faces illuminated in sharp contrast against the encroaching darkness. Anna, make your choice. Daniel's voice broke through the swirling thoughts, anchoring me to the moment as the shadows moved closer. In that instant, all the unresolved feelings I had toward Evelyn crashed like waves against the rocky shores of my heart. The girl who had once been like a sister to me now stood before me, bearing secrets and a burden I could scarcely comprehend. Was it possible that despite everything, I could trust her? Or had betrayal reshaped the contours of our friendship beyond repair? The cloaked figure sneered, his expression twisted into a parody of a smile. Will you protect the traitor, Anna, or will you save yourself? Evelyn's eyes flashed with desperation. Fight for the truth. My past is tangled in this. Klaus wants to destroy the remnants of what we built. He won't stop until he has us all. Those words sparked something within me, a flicker of rebellion against the suffocating fear. My gaze flicked from her to Daniel, who stood resolute, his body bracing for the impending clash. I took a shaky breath, spurred by a sudden awareness of the history we all shared. We won't let you dictate our choices, I shouted, my voice rising above the din. We've fought against shadows long enough. It's time we forge our path. As if drawn from the depths of my words, I felt a small wave of warmth rush through me, a shared understanding woven into the gaze of Daniel and the unexpected strength radiating from Evelyn. We faced the figure together, shoulders squared, hearts pumping with the rhythm of resolve. Foolish girl. He spat, advancing. The cold steel of his knife glinted ominously, but I could feel my own pulse thundering in defiance. I stepped forward, refusing to retreat into fear, but the shadows behind him moved with purpose, filling the void with the weight of more menacing presences. Without warning, a sudden flash erupted from the direction of the alley's entrance. Someone had drawn a weapon, a rescue born from the chaos. A streak of light sliced through the darkness as arrows whizzed past us, ricocheting against the cool stone walls. "Get down!" Someone shouted from the periphery, an ally from our past, a face I didn't expect to see at such a pivotal moment. The figure hesitated, shadowed fear flickering behind his eyes as he surveyed the impending threat. In that brief pause, I caught Daniel's eye, understanding passing silently between us. We had to take advantage of this chaos to reclaim our power. "Now," Daniel urged, and before hesitation could swell once more, we advanced. We darted to the side, hearts pounding, pushing forward as the confusion gripped our foes. Evelyn drew a breath, the flickering firelight catching the determination sweeping over her face. "Klaus can't control us anymore. We won to be pawns in his game." In that moment, a surge of warmth ignited within me, propelling me forward with the belief that perhaps, just perhaps, we had a chance to reclaim our strength. As Daniel and I rushed at the shadowed figure, I felt Evelyn at my side, our hearts synchronized in a heartbeat of solidarity. In a swift movement, Daniel tackled the cloaked figure to the ground, the dagger slipping from his grasp. The unexpected allies charged in, a merciless tide against those who threatened to tear us apart. I barely registered the chaos around me, the shouts, the clashing of metal, the cries of unexpected friendship joining our desperate cause, but as we fought, something unexpected happened. A figure appeared from the depths of the chaotic melee, someone I recognized from my past, bearing the weight of betrayal that cut deeper than the blade, now grappling for dominance. "Klaus!" I gasped, the very name drawing the breath from my lungs, reverberating through the space like a death knell. His sharp, calculating gaze gave nothing away, yet in his presence lay the potential for devastation. "This isn't over," he hissed, before disappearing back into the shadows, leaving a vacuum of uncertainty in his wake. "What do we do?" I turned to Evelyn, suddenly gripped by fear, not just for my own life, but for the lives of everyone I held dear. The full breadth of our choices rushed at me like a tide, a swell of emotions capturing my heart. "Now we figure out who to trust," she replied, determination etched into her features. But there was something in her gaze, a flicker of doubt. As the first signs of dawn broke through the tumult of emotions, illuminating the battered remnants of our once familiar world, I suddenly felt a shadow trail behind me, a darker truth emerging from the ashes of our battle. And as it became clear, I realized this was only the beginning of our fight, one that would demand far more than courage, one that would expose the tangled web of friendships and betrayal still alive in the heart of chaos. Someone in our circle was not who they claimed to be, and the answer might unravel everything I believed. As shadows loomed over us, the air crackled with the tension of uncertainty. We stood over the remnants of the battle, panting and bruised, the distant sounds of upheaval still echoing like a beating drum. I wanted to feel victorious, yet beneath the surface of my adrenaline-fueled triumph lay a gnawing anxiety, like a storm cloud gathering overhead. The very fabric of our alliance felt fragile, especially with whispers of betrayal lingering in every shared glance. The chaos began to settle, but my heart raced as I searched for clarity amidst the turmoil. I glanced at Daniel, whose fists were still clenched, shoulders taut with anticipation. "What now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn stepped forward, her expression a tapestry of anguish and determination. "If Klaus is manipulating us, we need to expose him and whoever else is hiding in the shadows," she declared, her voice steady yet laced with the weight of our scars. "We can't allow the remnants of our past to dictate our present." As we huddled in the alcove of a nearby building, the street still surged with uncertainty. I looked around, assessing our allies, the faces of those I once fought beside now painted with varying shades of wariness and hope. "What if it's someone among us?" I mused, the thought like a sharp arrow piercing through my mind. Daniel shook his head, his brow furrowing. "We can't jump to conclusions. We need to regroup, find a safe space, and uncover the truth before the walls close in again." The reality of our situation was palpable. We had narrowly escaped one disaster, but the specters of betrayal haunted us still. The thought danced around my mind, how deep did this web of deceit reach? I didn't have answers, but I felt a shift in the air, a sense that our next decision would set the course for everything that followed. As we maneuvered through the back streets, the weight of unresolved pasts crept into our conversations. The warmth of rekindled alliances battled with the chill of lingering distrust. I could see it in Daniel's eyes, the hesitation seeped through his every word. We need to be strategic about our next steps. Everyone we once relied on could be compromised. There's a safe house not far from here. If we regroup there, we can strategize without the threat of prying ears, Evelyn suggested. I could see the flicker of familiarity return to her eyes, the girl I once admired shining through the remnants of hurt and heartbreak. But as we turned another corner, an unexpected face emerged from the twilight. It was Klaus, a familiar smirk dancing on his lips, surrounded by an entourage of companions. The shadows that clung to his figure breathed a new kind of dread into the night. My stomach coiled as I faced him, recalling the intricate web he had spun in our lives, the strings of manipulation he pulled like a puppeteer. "Klaus," I said, punctuating his name with an edge of defiance, "what do you want?" "Oh, Anna," his voice dripped with feigned concern, "it's not what I want, it's what you've drawn into this very moment, hasn't he it?" His gaze flicked toward Daniel and Evelyn, taking in our ragged forms like a predator assessing a meal. "You're simply too reckless for your own good." Daniel stepped between us, the fury in his eyes a fierce storm. "We're not intimidated by you or your games anymore. If you continue to threaten us, you'll find out that we're not the same people you once knew." Klaus chuckled, an unnerving sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Is that so? You claim strength, but all I see is a patchwork of broken pasts stitched together by desperation. I can help you if only you'd heed the truth." "The truth?" Evelyn challenged, stepping forward with fire in her eyes. "Your truth? The same lies that nearly destroyed us? I'd rather take my chances against whatever you throw at us than align with a snake that can't be trusted." Klaus's expression darkened. "Then chaos shall reign, my dear. Just remember, every choice has consequences. Once friendships are torn apart, they may never truly heal," he warned, smugness weaving through each word. Before this heated exchange could escalate further, a familiar, yet daunting sound pierced the night, the rapid pounding of footsteps. The shadows thickened around us as figures emerged from the darkness, cloaked in malicious intent. "There's no escaping this." Klaus's expression twisted, reveling in the chaos unfurling around us. In that moment, the weight of our decisions hung unsteadily in the air, a disturbingly vivid reminder of everything we had to lose. As the fighters descended upon us, each blade glinting in the fire's glow, I grasped desperately at the threads of hope woven within our alliance, feebly attempted to quell the fears racing through my mind. "Together!" I shouted, conviction igniting deeper than ever as we formed a defensive circle. Our pasts may have tried to dictate who we were meant to be, but this moment was ours to seize. As blows rained down around us, we fought fiercely, not just against a foe outside, but against years of treachery that had shaped us. The vivid recollections of battles long fought merged with our current struggle, mingling each breath of despair with an emboldening rush of defiance. In this vortex of chaos, we finally found our voice again. It was a tumultuous symphony of memories, hopes, and fears that surged with unwavering resolve. "Now!" Daniel roared, his eyes alight with determination. "Let us reclaim what they think they've taken from us." And as we fought, it became abundantly clear, despite the chaos that surrounded us, though we had faced betrayals and losses, we also carried the scarred memories of kinship. Those bonds were not easily severed, they transformed into a tapestry of resilience interwoven with the lessons learned through heartache. With every clash of sword against blade, I felt something shift, our purpose solidified beneath the weight of our fears. In that flurry of despair, a newfound clarity emerged. This time, we stood not just to fight for survival but to reclaim our truth, our power, and ultimately, each other. With the last shadows and echoes of betrayal swirling into the night, we would weather the storm together, stronger than any division that had once attempted to break us. The path ahead was murky and perilous, but with our hearts aligned, we would embrace whatever storms came our way, igniting a new dawn glowing ahead. And so, as the echoes of our struggle reverberated through the remnants of the past, we solidified our stand in the heart of conflict, bound by the unbreakable chains of trust forged through fire, and whatever awaited in the shadows could no longer hold dominion over our destiny. In the face of uncertainty and treachery, we resolved to face each day anew and to stand as one, a bond stronger now than fear itself. Just as the first ray of dawn gilded the horizon, I knew, above all else, we had become much more than mere warriors. We'd become the architects of our fate. Together, we carved new paths from the embers of our pasts, and a quiet, unwavering resolve transformed us. In that fleeting breath of hope, I whispered, together forever.